Crosso and the Island of Despair. Students, as you know, in the previous lecture we talked about Crosso's attempt to build his shelter, into which he has carried all his provisions and the necessary items he has brought from the ship. Crosso feels more secure than before. Let us continue reading the novel to see what will be his next care. Students, will you please open your books on page 53. September the 30th, 1659, I, poor miserable Robinson Crusoe, being shipwrecked during a dreadful storm in the offing, came on shore on this dismal, unfortunate island, which I called the Island of Despair, all the rest of the ship's company being drowned, and myself almost dead. 1 year passed. Crosso starts writing his diary or his journal. Crosso records his daily events, his thoughts and feelings. The journal starts on 30 September 1659, the date of his arrival to this island. The journal shows Crosso's awareness of the importance of time and his refusal to live a primitive life in this isolated island. Now, page 54, please. The 4th of November. This morning I began to order my times of work, of going out with my gun, time of sleep, and time of diversion. With every morning I walked out with my gun for 2 or 3 hours, if it did not rain, then employed myself to work till about 11 o'clock, then eat what I had to live on, and from 12 to 2 I lay down to sleep, the weather being excessively hot, and then in the evening to work again. The civilized life that Crosso wants to live is obviously shown in his attempt to make a calendar and his intention to write his journal. Crosso here gives importance to time. He has organized his work by making arrangements and preparations for events and for his activities. He orders his time of work, of going out of his habitation with his gun, time of sleep, and even time of enjoyment or diversion. This shows his need to live a normal life, a life of the human beings, and it also shows that he still has a hope to be rescued or saved, from the life of isolation and loneliness he lives on this deserted island. He has a great desire to go back to his family and to his friends. Page 58, please. It was a little before the great rains just now mentioned that I threw this stuff away, taking no notice and not so much as remembering that I had thrown anything there when about a month after or thereabouts I saw some few stalks of something green shooting out of the ground, which I fancied might be some plant I had not seen, but I was surprised and perfectly astonished when after a little longer time I saw about 10 or 12 ears come out, which were perfect green barley, of the same kind as our European, nay, as our English barley. The narration of Robinson Crusoe here shows that Crosso has accidentally planted barley. How? One day Crosso accidentally plants some barley. He has thrown some barley away, taking no notice of anything and not so much remembering that he has thrown anything there. After more than 1 month, Crosso sees some stalks of barley. It seems that when it rains, the barley springs up and provides him with crops. It provides him with a good harvest of barley. The growing of barley, of course, enables Crosso to get fresh bread. Page 64, please. On the 19th of June, Crosso writes, very ill and shivering as if the weather had been cold. Then, on the 20th of June, he registers, no rest all night, violent pains in my head and feverish. On the 21st of June, Crosso writes in his diary, very ill, frightened almost to death, with the apprehensions of my sad condition to be sick and no help, prayed to God for the first time since the storm of Hull, but scarce knew what I said or why, my thoughts being all confused. Students, the narration of Robinson Crusoe here shows Crosso's illness. Crosso's deep illness, in fact. Crosso falls ill with a fever that makes him stay in bed for several days. He finds himself weak, vulnerable, and in need to help. Crosso's illness makes him unable to serve himself or even to bring to himself a drink of water. He spends his night having no rest, suffering, of course, a violent pain and suffering a deep fever. Crosso's illness makes him aware of his need to God's help and support. Therefore, he prays to God for the first time, as he himself says here. He realizes that no one can help him in this great distress save God. Page 65, please. I saw a man descend from a great black cloud in a bright flame of fire and light upon the ground. He was all over as bright as a flame, so that I could but just bear to look towards him. When he stepped upon the ground with his feet, I thought the earth trembled, just as it had done before in the earthquake, and all the air looked to my apprehension as if it had been filled with flashes of fire. He was no sooner landed upon the earth, but he moved forward towards me with a long spear or weapon in his hand to kill me. Being very ill, Crosso falls asleep. And of course, when he falls asleep, he has a terrible dream. Crosso sees a man descends from a black cloud, and this man seems to be dreadful. He has frightened Crosso, since this man moves towards Crosso, trying to kill him by, of course, a weapon or a spear in his hand. When he came to a rising ground at some distance, he spoke to me, or I heard a voice so terrible that it is impossible to express the terror of it. All that I can say I understood was this: seeing all these things have not brought thee to repentance, now thou shalt die. At which words I thought he lifted up the spear that was in his hand to kill me. Crosso here says that this horrible man tells him some words of threat in a very terrible voice. He tells him to declare his repentance, otherwise he is going to die. The terrible vision makes Crosso be in a great horror, a horror he has failed to describe it. The man here seems to symbolize Crosso's sins and bad deeds that had thrown him in this deserted island. After this terrible dream, Crosso realizes that even his illness is a kind of punishment. He has been punished by God for committing his bad deeds and sins. Students, thank you for your listening.